Everything is fueled from me wanting to be a better person on earth.
It's time to do your part.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Do Your Part. I will stay on the road, and today I'm in beautiful Hollywood, California, joined by Becky Wu. Who is she? You are going to find out, and you're going to find out exactly why I was so excited to speak with her. Now, before I get you to talk a little bit, a lot of what we're doing here with these conversations is to find out really individual experience. And from folks in their teens to people in their 80s and everything in between, gay, straight, black, white. I've got a lot of perspectives, but I've yet to get a voice like hers. She's a powerhouse, and we're going to find out why. So that's what we're doing here with Do Your Part. Make sure to always, continue to tune in and like us and all that fun stuff like Facebook and Instagram. But thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I always ask people this question. I'm going to try to steer away from it as I continue to do these podcasts. But when I asked you to do this, you didn't hesitate. So why were you so quick to say, yeah, I'm in?
I think, first of all, whatever you think that's interesting about me, I'd like to dive into it because I'm curious to know what you think is interesting. So I'm always one to want to learn more about myself and see what people view me outside of myself.
Out of all the people I've interviewed, that's the first time someone has given me that answer, and that makes a lot of sense because it's like, okay, well, why me? What do you see in me? Okay, let's do it. Right?
Yeah, it's just really like, let's do it. Let's see what, I'm curious.
Well, I'm going to tell you what I see in you, and you're going to tell the people what we all see in you through your story. So, again, thanks for taking the time in your really cool house. I love this place, by the way. You got our dogs around. So I'd like for you to start by telling us a little bit about your upbringing, where you're from, family life, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything that you can give me.
Yeah, so I was born in Oakland, California, Kaiser, in...
a year
before 2000. It's crazy. And actually, I don't really care. I was born in 79, so I was still a 70s baby.
Oh, you're younger than I am.
What?
You're younger than I am.
Yeah. And born in Oakland, California, two immigrant parents. I think they came in 74. My sister was born in 76. Wow. My name is Becky. My sister's name is Joni because my mom loved Joni Loves Chachi.
Are you serious?
I kid you not.
So wait, we got Joni Loves Chachi, but why Becky?
I think because my Chinese name is Bic.
Okay.
So Wu Ga Bic. Wu is the surname's always first in Cantonese, so it's Wu Ga Bic and Bic Becky. I don't know. I get a lot of, is your name Rebecca? And they call you, I'm like, no. My parents are immigrants. They're never going to understand that Becky is for Rebecca.
Right. Which is the story for a lot of people who come from immigrant families, right?
Right.
Just grab a name.
It's just grab a name.
Yeah.
My mom, she named herself Ada. All my cousins
German, random.
Yeah, it was super random. My cousins who came from Hong Kong after, my parents sponsored them. I mean, my cousin, he changed his name now back to his regular Chinese name. But when he came, he loved RoboCop, so he called himself Murphy.
Wow.
Yeah, they just gave themselves their own names.
I'm curious what that does to your psyche. It's like having to acclimate and give up your name sounds like something that would probably do one on my head a little bit.
Oh, probably, because it's like you have to, well, actually, it's actually, no, I take that back. It's probably every kid's dream. I can name myself, I'm going to be Zorro,
Good point.
He named himself Murphy from RoboCop. Yeah. He was like, I'm Murphy. You know what I mean? That's I think it's an empowering thing.
But then went and changed back to his original name.
When he got older, he was like, this is stupid. Yeah. I love my identity. I love who I am. And my Chinese name is San, so I'm San,
But the kind of the road to get there for him must have been quite interesting. Tell me a bit, and again, as I mentioned how I kind of do these interviews, we're going to jump all over the place.
Yeah.
Your parents moved here in 74.
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
From where?
From Hong Kong.
Wow.
Yeah. So my mother is from Hong Kong. My dad is from Canton, China. Excuse me. My nose is running. I am so sorry.
Yeah.
Can I grab
no problem. Quick? Yep. Here we go. All right. So, we took a little bit of a break and now we're back. It was a brief break, a needed break, and we left off at the word Canton. So this is where your father was from.
My dad's from Canton. And my mother's from Hong Kong. They met in, 60 something, And my mother was from a very poor family. I think my father was in relatively wealthy family at the time, but communism took over and blah 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 and took all their wealth. And so I guess at some point my dad came to Hong Kong. Met my mother, and my dad's oldest sister, I don't recall how it happened, but did get some type of, citizenship here in the United States. And so she ended up bringing the rest of the family here.
Because you mentioned the word sponsorship.
Sponsorship.
So did your aunt sponsor your parents, and then they then sponsored somebody else?
Correct. So like I believe my aunt, my mom, my father's second oldest sister, had somehow gotten her green card or something. I forgot what it was,
Right.
but she was able to come to the United States, and then she was able to sponsor the rest of the family. And so that was in like 74. So when we brought in my mom's side of the family, we were able to, I was born here. My parents had citizenship at that point. They were able to sponsor my mom's side of the family, I think in the mid 80s, mid to late 80s, I believe.
And so on and so forth, right?
Actually, it might even be early 90s, somewhere there, yeah.
But did that kind of trend continue to happen? Continuing to sponsor more family to get them to the U.S.?
I'm sure, at this point, only the ones that wanted to come at this point.
Yeah.
Not everybody wanted to come.
Because that's another conversation, is like the way we're making it sound is like this is the most sought after place to be. And
Right.
talk about the American dream.
Right.
It's like there must have been
I definitely think in the 80s, 90s, lots of people, 70s, 60s, people wanted to come here.
Yeah.
I think now, where we're at now, I think people are like, no, I'm good at home. I'm good where I am.
I'm chilling.
I'm chilling.
Good to go.
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, we were always known as the best country in the world, number one, USA. And then when you leave the country, we talk a lot about traveling here on the show. You find out that we've been the laughing stock for decades.
Oh, but this happened. My sister and I, we traveled probably all throughout Europe. Like mid 2000s, like 2005, 6 or something like that. We went all throughout Europe, did a backpacking thing, did that whole thing. Yeah, every part of Europe we went to, like they were like, "Oh, you're American." Oh, like people did not like Americans.
Yeah.
They do not like Americans,
And they're not afraid to tell you.
They're not afraid to tell you. I mean, like we took tons of tours. I believe there was, I think I forgot what country we were in at this point. We were doing a tour, and they're like, yeah, the American embassy asked if we can move the Holocaust Memorial over so they could put the embassy there, and things that were just ridiculous. And that was part of
true?
the. Yeah, I forgot which country it was.
Probably
Germany, actually.
That is so embarrassing.
Yeah. Like, oh, can you just move that memorial over so we could fit ours in here?
Right.
And they're like, no.
Wow.
No.
Yeah, let's not honor history and
Right.
Millions murdered. Let's
Yeah.
go ahead and put this building up here because we are number one.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to get back to that in a bit. So, wow, I guess for you, this is all you know. Do you have any relationship with any of your family that's still living in China?
I
Do
mean,
you have cousins that envy you or anything like that?
no,
Okay.
no, they're all here actually. Most, I
Okay.
mean, my grandmother had, my dad's side of the family. My grandmother had 13 kids.
Dang.
Yeah, my mom's side of the family. My grandmother had, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, seven kids.
Yeah.
So, but my dad's side, we grew up like since we were little because my mom's side of the family immigrated here like when we were like teenagers or early teens. So, but my grandmother, 4 of the eldest when I was a kid had passed away. Like I believe 2 were twins. 1 had an accident. The one that sponsored us over, she passed away in the year I was born in 79 in a car accident. And I think 1 was maybe like in birth. The baby died. So out of the 13, 9 survived. I mean, I take that back. 10 survived. 1 passed away when she was an adult. And yeah, grew up knowing all 9 aunts and uncles, and then like 27, 30, 50 cousins. It just ended up growing like crazy.
That's a group of people.
Yeah.
Did everybody kind of touch down in the Bay Area, Oakland area?
Yeah. So crazy enough, so the Wus, right? We're Wu WU. You can kind of choose how you want to spell it, I guess, when you get here because it's WOO or WU. So my grandfather's kids and so forth all came to the Bay Area. My grandfather's brother, the WOO Wus, all landed in Los Angeles. So I have extended family, tons in Southern California.
With a different spelling of the last name.
Right.
And
still spelled the same in Chinese. It's just they chose to spell it differently when they came here.
This is a random question. Is it safe? We can't assume that Wu's spelled differently are going to be connected. Is that how you all see each other? Like, oh, that could possibly be my family.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because
that's
it depends.
reality.
It depends on how it's spelled in Chinese. Because Wu in English is like, who cares? It's just WOO, WU, whatever, you know. But in Chinese, it's spelled a certain way. So yeah, there's probably some lineage back,
Got it.
That's
I
connected
understand.
in some way.
Right. Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
All right. I cannot believe how many kids your father's mother had.
Well, as crazy as it sounds, because I've been told 2 stories. One that, we were very wealthy in our village, but we were also but another story was like, oh, well, we're a farming family, so you need a lot of kids to tend the land, you know? So I don't know which one's true.
Right. Which actually makes sense if you think about kind of what that life entails. Have you ever been back home to visit?
Yes.
Do you call it home, and have you been back to China? I shouldn't say back. I'm sorry. Have you been to China?
I've been to China. I've been to my mother's side, her father's village. I've never been to my father's side.
But you got to see this village.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Oh my gosh, it was crazy. So I went to this village, and there was a lagoon outside of, like my mother's aunt's place. And, there was like cows bathing in there. People are walking out with their trash cans and just tossing it into the lagoon. Mm-hmm. And at one point, my aunt was like, oh, it's such a beautiful day. Do you want to go swimming? And I'm like, there's a cow right there inside. There's trash floating around. I'm like, no, I'm good. I was 14.
That's the norm for that.
Yeah, I was 14 at the time, I remember. Oh, I mean, I'll get real nitty gritty. I got really sick. Really sick. Obviously, go to a different country, you're eating different foods, waters are different. And I just got really sick. And so luckily my mom was like, okay, your aunt knows the doctor in town, so we can go at like 10 o'clock at night. We went. Luckily, he took me in, and I was having bad stomach issues. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, okay, just go to this bathroom right here. And this was like a serious village bathroom. So I'm going to get like really gross.
You remember like it was yesterday.
Because I just remember walking into the bathroom. There were stalls up to my knees, knee high. The stalls are knee high. So that means that if I'm standing, we can literally look like this, And so their stalls are knee high, but it's nighttime, so nobody's there. And the hospital's closed, so thank God it's just me in there. There is a little ditch in each stall, like a little ditch. Yeah. Right. And so I was like, all right, so I'm going to go to the one at the end. So every 5 minutes, water gushes from one end and flushes below all the stalls and flushes whatever's been in the ditch to the first one. So can you imagine if this bathroom was, and there was, I don't know, from what I recall, it was like 10, 15 deep of stalls.
Jeez.
So if you're the first one and it's full and everybody's dropping a load and you're going to, and it's time to flush, you're going to have 15 people's stuff.
Yeah.
Flushed under you, washing, like
smelling it, splattering on you.
All splattering. Right. Like I was like, this is foul, and this is village life. I don't know. It was just back in the day. And that's one thing I really.
I think it's hilarious that you chose that stall. It was like if you chose the first stall, you would.
I don't even know. I was just like, I want to go to the end, and it was more private over there, even though nobody's there. But then I thought about it because I looked down when I was done, and it was like. I just heard the sound. It was like, what is going on? All of a sudden, I just see water just goes, and it flushes past every stall. And I was like, and I'm standing up. So I'm kind of standing up so I could see it go through each stall. And just everything gets flushed in one direction.
What was that like for an American girl?
I was like...
Did it rock you?
Well, I think that is why people are like, I want to go to America. Because it's like, what's going on over there? Because it's... Yeah, it rocked me. I was like, what is this? You know? But at the same time, I'm like, hey, this is how they did it. This is how, this was advanced at the time in that village.
Right. That was progressive.
But I didn't recognize that at 14 years old. I was like, ew,
yeah.
ew.
Where's the toilet paper? Right.
Being a young, naive, girl from America, like, oh my God, this is gross. And like, now that I think about it, I'm like, hey, that's what it was at the time. And they were advanced at the time. I'm sure it's way more advanced now, but.
Right. What, you think?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'm sure. They were definitely developing at the time when I remember things were being built and, electricity was forming in the area, in that village, And
so you've been once. Have you been back?
Just to that village, that was only one time.
Gotcha. Was your sister with you?
Yes.
And so this is a random question. I'm sure you probably can't answer it, but is it safe to assume she had this similar or same experience as you did visiting, or just as shell shocking? And
you know what's so funny? There are times where like I'll bring up stories of like our parents or things that happened when we were young, and she's like, I don't remember that happening at all. Like I remember this, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So. I don't know. Our perception of things are, like I see what I see and I perceive what I perceive. And she could have had the same experience, but just saw it from a totally different.
That's weird as we get older and we look back on things like that. Like even with my sister, I'm like, okay, we lived in totally different houses. We didn't, but our stories sound like we did.
Yeah.
So most people touched down in Oakland. Some came down to Los Angeles. Talk a bit about what it was like for you growing up in Oakland. Where in Oakland? I mean, being an Asian American, were you accepted quickly? Were there others like you around? Give me the backstory.
Yeah. So I was raised in Oakland. It's just a very diverse community. It's super diverse. Like my best friends were literally black, white, Asian, everything, like everything. So, kindergarten, I was like, this is awesome. Okay, I love school. I loved school.
For the social side or for academic or all of it?
I think all of it. I just loved being around people. I just remember, especially in first grade, my I believe I was sick, but I didn't want to tell my mom because then she would make me stay home. So
you love school that much.
I love school. I was like, this is so much fun every day, seeing people and hanging out, and school wasn't difficult for me at the time. I don't recall it being difficult. And my teachers did edify me a lot because they're like, Becky's really smart. And I was like, oh, I gotta be smart now,
Right.
So, but I remember that first day of first grade, I didn't tell my mom I was sick. I went to school, and I just remember feeling awful in my core class or whatever. And I just remember them going, okay, recess. And so if the bell rings, we're walking out, and there's tons of kids right behind me. And I just stopped, and I just threw up all over the doorway, like right in front of the doorway. And all the kids stopped, and I was like, oh no. And they're like, oh, Becky, oh no, what's wrong? I was like, I don't feel good. And the kids were stuck in the room because they couldn't step out over the throw up to get to their recess.
Don't you gotta love this podcast. We're talking about poop and vomit. Go ahead.
Well, it's like my friends nowadays, because they know that when they come over, they call it like, oh God, Becky's gonna kidnap you because she doesn't let you go home because she's like, what? You're getting tired. You want to go home? Whoa, let me feed you first. What do you want to eat? You want to eat something? Oh, you want to watch some TV? Oh, you want to smoke some? You want to do? Like I'll cater to whatever you want to do just so you stay. And people are like, oh gosh, she's trying to kidnap you. So I guess that was my form of trying to kidnap all my friends in my
classroom.
So I throw up in the doorway so nobody can get out. I don't know. But my mom picked me up and she was like, why didn't you tell me? I was like, I wanted to go to school. She was like, okay, if you're ever sick, you can't go to school. You don't want to get other people sick. I was like, oh, I didn't think about that.
Do you still keep in contact with any kids from school? I would imagine you would.
Not in elementary school.
Okay.
I mean, I know some of my old best friends' names, but I think I looked them up and I couldn't find them on Facebook, because I did jump around to different schools. I still have home videos of my birthdays with those kids in there, and I do cut up videos sometimes, and I'm always like, ooh, this will be really fun to like cut this up and find them, just like pop it on their wall.
Right.
I
ask because I had a similar experience in school, and you know me well enough. I love being social, so it was all about getting with my friends at school. And I thankfully still are in contact with a few of my friends from elementary, junior high, high school, because I had that attitude.
Yes. Oh, junior high and high school, I definitely have lots of friends, like in terms of like just on Facebook and connection and stuff like that.
That you still got love for.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. What's your earliest memory? I'm just curious.
It's crazy. I don't know what my earliest memory is because my dad was big on videotaping us when we were young. So we actually have baby videos from the 70s, 79, 80, 81, 82. So I have baby videos and I watch those videos and then now I'm like, is that part of my memory or is that because I've watched myself? So I don't know. I'm not totally sure.
That is a topic in its own. We are from a generation that I don't have any documentation like that. We have old pictures.
Yeah.
That is hair-raising.
Crazy, right? Because you think about it like, now kids, everybody has, my sister has a baby. Everything's video.
From birth
they're going to have,
to date.
On her Instagram, she has like Lenny from birth to 12 months and videos of it. Right. So he's always going to have that catalog. Like, oh, this is how I was when, You don't
have to lean on your memory if you can do that.
Right. But for us, it was just pictures. But my dad, I was like, people were like, oh my God, you have video? And I was like, my dad was really big. I mean, he had that massive camcorder he would carry around everywhere.
The 45-pound one. And again, I have never asked somebody that question, but the reason it prompted me is because of talking about, these childhood memories and, you throwing up and vividly and why and the emotional connection to that. It's really interesting. All right, so move into the experience of being an Asian American. It sounds like you had a great childhood and a great upbringing in Oakland. It was a perfect place to be.
Yes, so I grew up in a very diverse, like elementary school. And at one point my parents were like, okay, we want you to go to Piedmont. And so
which is a little more upscale.
Yes, it's an upscale. It's just a little community inside of Oakland. It's a very affluent community inside of Oakland, and you have to be a resident of Piedmont. And they're $1 million houses, and only like a handful of apartments in the area. So we weren't living in the neighborhood. So my uncle, who was a custodian at the middle school, basically took custody of us so that we can attend that school, because my parents wanted us to have a good education.
Yeah.
Not that we couldn't get it in Oakland, because there's great schools in Oakland also, but they wanted, generally, like, I don't even know the percentage, but like a lot of the kids that come out of Piedmont go to like Ivy League schools and blah, blah, blah. And so they're like, let's give them this opportunity. And so, yeah, we ended up going to Piedmont in 4th grade, and that was a culture shock, because I went from a fully diverse school to I would say 95% Caucasian school. And that was the first time I actually looked at myself going, I'm different.
In junior high school?
This was 4th grade.
Gotcha.
4th grade. Because I went from a diverse school, a diverse elementary school, kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade. And in 4th grade, I was like, oh, I'm not white, because everybody's white here.
Were you treated differently?
In the beginning, yes, because I realized these kids had, I don't know if I actually recognized it, but I think there was a recognition of these kids have something nicer than I do. Clothes were nicer. I think I recognized that. I was like, oh, maybe I'm wearing something that wasn't as like fun or cute or nice or whatever,
or trendy
or something, because I would wear whatever I wore in school, and in Oakland it was fine. Everybody wore like hand-me-downs from their siblings and so forth. And so when I went to the school, I was like, wow, I don't dress the way they do. Yes, there was a moment, like a Mean Girls moment, that happened to me in 4th grade. There was a girl, we were in like art, we were doing art stuff on the floor, and I remember I asked this one girl, I was like, oh, do you mind if I use your scissors? And she looked at me and she's like, oh, yeah. But her friend who's sitting next to her elbowed her, and she's like, oh, sorry, we're using it. And it was so small. It was such a small little moment, but I saw it.
A clear moment.
It's just like yesterday. I remember that happening, her going, like, don't let her use it. We don't know her. And like just that real mean girl moment. It had no reason why she wouldn't let me use it. She wasn't using it. We were all doing the same thing, And I remember thinking, ow, like now it made me like a lot more introverted, because I was like, oh, I've never felt that before either. These are feelings that I've never felt before from a diverse school to this school. I think the only reason why I came out of all that was because I was actually, I think, from my first memory of being sad, like really sad in a social setting, was going to that school, and I just wasn't connecting. In Oakland schools, I was like, I was like super social. I had so many friends.
You were confident.
I was confident, super confident. So I went to the school, and it was, I would say, maybe the first week or two, I felt like disconnected and didn't belong. Until recess one day, I was sitting there and I was, kind of down, just watching people play. And this boy came up to me. His name was Giovanni Tovar. He's passed away now, which is very sad. Yeah, he's passed away doing exactly what he does, which is helping people. I'll tell you about that later. But I remember Giovanni, he came up to me and was like, what's wrong? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm feeling kind of down. Not sure. I forgot what I said, but I wasn't feeling great. He's like, well, do you want to play basketball with us? And I was like, yeah. Because I was very much of a tomboy, And I was like, yeah. And he's like, all right, everybody, we're going to play basketball. Becky's going to be on my team. And Giovanni was very popular at the time. And I played basketball with them. And he brought me in to play sports. And they saw that I was like, they're like, whoa, Becky's good. And so all the guys were like, yeah, Becky's on my team. And the next thing you know, the girls follow. And the girls were like, oh, Becky's playing with all the boys. And all the boys are friends with Becky. And I mean, that's my perception. I don't know what anybody else, but that was my perception.
Makes sense.
And from that point on,
you were good to go.
I was friends with everybody, wanted to be my friend.
Okay, cool.
And then I was like, I'm in. Like, I didn't even, it wasn't a conscious thing.
Well, of
like,
course, you're too young. You can't methodically plan stuff like that. It's not conscious. I'm relieved to hear this, because again, I mean, I was, when we spoke before the podcast, I was like, give me the doom and gloom. It doesn't sound like you really have any doom and gloom attached to your, at least your school experience.
No, not the social aspect. There was no doom and gloom. Like I would say, probably in ninth grade, there's a lot of changes that happened because I went to Piedmont all the way for 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and then in ninth grade, my sister went to this organization. She was like, I heard about this organization. It's called the Asian Youth Services Committee in Oakland. There's Asian people there. Obviously, because we went to like a predominantly white Jewish school. Like I can recite part of the Torah. Like Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Yeah, I went to 16. I went to 16 bar and bat mitzvahs when I was 13 years old. Because that's how. It was a hugely populated like Jewish community.
I didn't know that. Go ahead.
In Piedmont. And so my sister, like in 8th or 9th grade, she was like, when I was in 8th or 9th grade, my sister's like, there's this organization called AYSC, Asian Youth Services Committee, and I want to go check it out. You want to come? I was like, yeah, that's cool. And I just remember the first day I went there. It was in Oakland, Chinatown. It was in this auditorium. And I just remember there was so many Asian kids there. But I always assume Asian kids all had accents. I was one of the very few that spoke English with no accent because in my school, the other Asian, like there was maybe like a handful that didn't have an accent. The rest were, immigrants, and they would sit in the library during lunchtime, and that's just what I saw.
They were first generation, right?
My experience was like Asian people are in library, and they all speak their language, and I'm
unique.
I'm unique. I'm American, And I remember going in this room, there was probably like 50 kids. Everybody's like, yo, what's up? Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, what is this? My eyes, I was blown away.
So were you like, are these my people? These are my people?
100%.
Okay.
I was like, now I'm like, I'm not you. But there's a part of me that's like, I'm not unique.
That's why I asked, because some people might say, no, close the door. Like, this is messing up my program,
Well, for me, it was too fascinating not to. Like, I liked being unique. And then there was definitely insecurity that came along with that because it was like, oh, there's people that all speak, with no accents, and they're beautiful and they're funny and they're, oh God, I thought I was the funny, beautiful,
and
blah, 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 and they're confident. And I'm like, well, but it was too fascinating to close it because I'm like, I want to understand all this, but this is making me feel like not important. But you try to find your way at that point. Like, how important am I in this scene now? But
that's huge. And just walking into that room, there's so much you can learn just from your peers in that moment.
Well, from that, after going to AYSC, we joined the organization. It was
how many years are you and your sister apart?
2.5,
okay,
three, almost 3.
All right, go ahead.
So it was run by the Oakland Police Department. So we had it was run by the Oakland Police Department, and it was.
So it's well respected by the community.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, everybody.
100%, because it was run by the Oakland Police Department. It was affiliated with them. They helped us do fundraisers. We threw dances, with Asian people from all different all different cities that came together because the Asian community wasn't huge. I mean, it was, but they weren't they weren't brought together.
Right.
And so it was like eye-opening, like, oh, you're from Danville, you're from, Alameda, you're from da-da-da. Asian kids that would never come together otherwise, unless they went to church or something like that, that's what raised the next question was I told my mom in 10th grade, I said, hey, Mom, like before 10th grade hit, I was like, Mom, I've been going to Piedmont. I don't know who I am. I don't know who I'm Asian, and I in my school, there's barely any other Asian kids. I want to go to Skyline, which is Tom Hanks went to Skyline, but it was a very diverse, in Oakland Hills, very diverse community, a school. And so I was like, Mom, I want to go to Skyline. And she's like, what are you talking about? It took us a lot of work to get you to this school and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, but Mom, I sold her on my point of view and was like, but I need to know who I am. Yeah. There's Asian kids there and there's communities there that I don't feel I'm not a part of, and I have to understand who I am as a person, and I can't, and I stated my case, and my mom was like, okay.
Which is a viable case.
Totally. Now, part of me is like, did I do it knowingly, say the things that she needed to hear to let me go, or did I really want to?
Were you manipulating her?
Or manipulating her, yeah.
Well, well?
I don't know. To this day, I'm not totally sure.
You think if you had stayed at Piedmont, you would be like some doctor?
Oh, I'm not done. I'm not done.
Okay, sorry. Go.
So I went for one semester. My mom let me go. We had to get the school to let me, release me from Piedmont. Went to Skyline. Went for one semester. I was doing really well in that semester, but met a bunch of friends that are, I'm still friendly with now, but, there's definitely some people that would cut out of school all the time. And in Skyline, it's a secure school, meaning they have security. Piedmont is an open campus. You can leave for lunch. You can take your car. You can take your BMW, like a lot of the kids do, to like McDonald's and buy their McDonald's and come back after lunch. In Skyline, you have to stay in. In campus unless you have a note to leave. So I'd always have a friend that had a note, and I'd jump in the trunk of the car, and we drive down, and he'd hand the note in, or he or she, or a bunch of us would be in trunks, and we would cut out so much that I could tell after like the first part of the semester, my grades were great because obviously at the beginning I'm going to school, and then all of a sudden I was like cutting. And by the end of the first semester, I was like, went to my mom and I was like, I need to go back to Piedmont.
Yeah.
And she's like, what? And I was like, I need to go back to Piedmont. You don't understand. It's a lot of temptation there, and I'm not going to graduate. I won't graduate. I need to, it's just it was too. I thank God.
Temptation.
The temptation of just smoking cigarettes, going to restaurants. We had
Kissing boys, smoking weed.
Well, just like beepers were a thing at the time. So I had a friend that texted me every day, was like, come pick me up at this time. I was like, don't worry, I got our friends. We were leaving the school at like 10 o'clock, and we'll get there by like 10:15, 10:30, and we'll pick you up, because she went to a different school, and we just do the same routine every day, and I just never went to school, ever. And so, So I told my mom, I was like, I need to go back to Piedmont because thank God I had the wherewithal to even ask for that.
At such a young age.
At 10th grade, What is that,
the
like
temptation
16?
of fruit and then actual focus, and you chose focus.
Well, yeah, I was in the middle. I was like, okay, maybe if I'm forced to go back to Piedmont, I will do better. Now, I went to Piedmont, I went back, and it was a struggle to get back because the teachers were, or the principal was like, why are you coming back? Because there was a lot of Asian gang stuff that was happening at that time in the news and all that kind of stuff. So they're like, you're Asian, why are you coming back in? What's the problem? There's been a lot of people trying to come to our school. It's open campus, but they're Asian kids that are coming in threatening some of our students. Are you involved in any of this? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't have nothing to do with any of that stuff. I knew the people that did, but I had nothing to do with that. And he's like, why are you coming in? And so... But the superintendent already okayed me after he was giving me this whole thing. And then finally we're like, well, the superintendent already okayed it. He's like, well, why are you here then? Yeah. Of course you can come back in then. Because I basically said, like, he's like, well, when you left, you had a GPA of, and I was like, a 3.83 at the time. It's like 3.83 is not terrible. It's not a 4.2, but it's, but he was thinking I was like a 2.1 or something. And I was like, no, look at my numbers. And he's like, oh, you're a 3.83. Oh, okay.
So you didn't slide back too far.
No. But when I got back to Piedmont, I was finally let back in. My friends would leave Skyline, come pick me up at Piedmont now, instead of me just leaving with them at Skyline, because the temptation was still there.
Yeah.
So, like, I wouldn't do it as often, but I still cut out a lot.
Yeah. All right, so I want to fast forward.
Yeah.
Okay. Because now we know a little bit about Piedmont, we know a little bit about Skyline and that experience. Tell me about, like, how you got now Hollywood, with everything that you've done. Tell me about that road.
Let's see.
Like, what brought you to LA from Oakland?
Yeah.
Like, where did
I mean, I always knew that I wanted to be an actor. Since I was young, I was in plays in 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade, whatever. And then, like, I remember in Skyline, I tried out for the play, and in Skyline, the plays are pretty prominent. Like, they're productions. But I was always an athlete. And I remember I tried out for varsity volleyball and when I first got to Skyline in 10th grade. And at that time, they started 10th, 11th, 12th grade was the high school. But now I think they do 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. But the year that I was in, 10th grade was the first year. And I tried out for varsity volleyball, and I got into varsity volleyball. And I got into the play. So I auditioned because I was like, okay, I'm going to really step out and try this thing, And I remember thinking to myself, when I went to my first practice for the play, like, they're like, oh, you're just going to be watching a lot of it and blah, blah, blah. You're new to this, and you're not really, you're not one of the people that have been part of this theater company for so long, whatever. So I was like, okay.
With the air of, I can already hear it.
Yeah. So I was like, okay. I remember just walking and going, like, I want to be an actor, but in varsity volleyball, I'm a starter.
Yeah.
I'm going to start. Because I'm in varsity volleyball. I got accepted. I'm in varsity volleyball with all these seniors.
Why can't I start
why can't I start in the
theater.
play?
Right.
Yeah. So because I
Sit
didn't
back
get
and
that
watch.
opportunity,
Right.
I went into sports, And so, but I've always had a affinity and a passion for acting. So I remember going to San Francisco. I went to San Francisco State for college, and I, did cinema, acting classes, all that stuff. Got my headshots, and auditioned a little bit around town, but it wasn't really big because I was still in college and I was trying to do a little bit of school. I worked as a caterer at in San Francisco for years just to make ends meet, because we didn't have a lot of money. And then I remember I told my mom, like years prior to graduating, I was like, just don't forget, Mom, when I graduate, I'm moving to Los Angeles to pursue acting. And she's like, okay, no problem. Of course.
Just brushing you off.
Oh,
not
no.
believing it.
I mean, I'm the younger kid, so it's like, okay. And then
Sure, Becky.
when I graduated, I was like, okay, I'm moving to Los Angeles. She was like, wait, where are you going? I'm like, I'm moving to Los Angeles. I told you. I've been
prepped you
telling
for
you for years, She's like, but I was like, no. So 6 months I worked as much as I could. And then I moved to Los Angeles 6 months later.
Wow. What
Yeah.
year was that?
So I actually moved in 2002. But in 2003, like it was like the end of 2002. I met like some of my best friends to this day when I started working at Morel's French Steakhouse and Bistro. And 2003, it was like maybe like 6 months or something like that, 6-7 months. I found out that my mother had cancer.
Oh.
So I ended up going back to the Bay Area a lot because obviously San Francisco, LA, it's only like a 5.5 hour drive, 1 hour flight. So I would go back and forth all the time. And then in mid 2003, I was in a play in Los Angeles, and my sister came down with a bunch of friends. And my mom was supposed to come because this was my first play that I'm doing, but my sister was like, oh, Mom's not feeling great, so I was like, okay, she's like she'll come to another one. I was like, that's fine. So my mom would call me all the time, let me know what's going on. So that time my sister came down with a bunch of my friends. They all saw the play. It was really fun. And after the play closed, because they came the last weekend, after the play closed, I remember like they all slept at my studio apartment on the floor, refugee style, because that's how we do when we're like in the early 20s, with no
Talk
money.
about support. Go ahead.
With no money. And so I remember like we woke up after one night of drinking, and they're like, oh, we're gonna go get coffee, and I was still getting ready. I was like, oh, I'm still getting ready, and they're like, oh, we'll bring you something back. I was like, great. And my sister's like, oh, I'll just stay here with Becky. And so I was like, okay, whatever, So all the friends left, and my sister stayed with me. And then she's like, after they left, she came to the bathroom while I'm doing my hair, and she's like, I need to talk to you. And I was like, what's going on? And she's like, I'm here to take you home. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, Mom is really sick. Whew, hold on.
Yeah. You got some tissue over there, baby.
It's not like I haven't told the story before.
Right, but it comes back. The emotions
Yeah.
rush back.
So she's like, Mom's really sick. She's terminal. And she didn't want me to tell you until after your play was over so that it wouldn't jeopardize your position in, and I'm
Distract you, right.
distract me in any way. And I was like, and she's like, how important is your job? I'm like, I'm a waitress. It doesn't matter. I'm expendable. Who cares, And she's like, okay. And I just, at that moment, I called my boss and was like, I can't work anymore. I got to go home. And so after that, went home. So I was a studio at the time, and I went home, gave up my lease, all that kind of stuff. And basically was my mom's primary caretaker for the next 9 months. Yeah. And my sister's studio apartment. My mom was in a gurney in the living room. I slept on the floor.
And you were by her side for the last year of her life.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's why when people ask, like, when did you move to Los Angeles? I was like, and I always say 2005, really.
Yeah, because it was messy.
It was messy. I didn't really do a whole lot here because I was always back and forth with my mom.
You weren't really established till 2005. All right, so talk about a blessing. I mean, when you look at those 9 months, I mean, it's nothing but a blessing, right?
That's I wouldn't change any of it.
Yeah.
Like,
that's a silver lining.
I mean, it was awful for the reason why I was doing it, but the time I got to spend with my mom and to like reassure her that, because I was a shitty kid. I was a shitty from like 13 to like 18. I was a troubled troubled teen, like not troubled like I'm doing drugs and but like troubled
Rebellious
I went clubbing.
Yeah.
I went clubbing Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday till 3 a.m. Oh yeah, at 13, 14, 15, 16. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah. I didn't do drugs. I smoked a lot of cigarettes, but I didn't even drink alcohol. I loved to dance. I just loved to dance, And so my mom, my parents had split by that point. My dad left when I was about 11 years old. We're a little pretty estranged, but now he's not really in our lives. But there'll be like a email like "Happy Birthday" or whatever. But it's not really like it's fine. We've dealt with it already.
You're okay with that?
Yeah. At this point, yeah. I've gone through a lot of therapy to be completely okay with it. It's his choice, not ours. Well,
it's funny you say ours because at least you have your sister in tow. Right, while dealing.
My
with
sister
that.
and I are very in unison in how we feel. Like it's fine.
And your relationship with him, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't dislike my father. He made choices that he made choices that didn't include us.
Yeah,
and that's hurtful. But those are his choices, and what a shame. What a shame that he doesn't get to enjoy us.
And it wasn't necessarily directed towards you.
What
it
do
was
you
just
mean?
him being selfish. It's a lot of, that's how men behave, and not all men, but as we do the therapy, as we understand the relationships we have or have not had with our parentals, right? And even me knowing my father, I'm sorry if you watch this, I just have to be honest. I mean, he chose to take a selfish path for himself.
Right.
I don't necessarily think that it had anything to do with me per se.
No,
He just
no,
wanted
no.
to go do him.
Well, the thing is, he's always wanted a son, and I remember, so he has a son. I have a half brother. I forget about him sometimes. Not that I want to, but he was not really prevalent in our lives. Like I remember when I was maybe like 26. I was like,
let me interrupt you.
Yeah.
Him wanting a son. This is cultural.
Yeah. I mean, yes, it's a very cultural thing for like a Chinese man to want a son to, follow his name and, all that kind of stuff. But he's always wanted a son, and I just remember when I was young, like, one night my parents got in an argument. So my dad slept in my bed with me. And I remember looking out the window and I just, I don't remember exactly. I just remember we were looking at the window and my dad said something about like, oh, I thought you were going to be a boy when you were born. Because they did. They thought I was going to be a boy. I didn't have a name. I didn't have a name when I was born because they thought I was going to be a boy. When I came out a girl, my mom, when I was older, my mom finally told me my dad was like, it's a girl. Like, that was the reaction. It wasn't like, it's a girl. It's like, it's a girl.
Disappointed, right.
Yeah. And so so when my dad told me like, oh, I thought you were going to be a boy. And I was like, and I just wanted to please my dad so bad. I think that's why I got into sports because I was like,
that's the way you can.
yeah, I was like, Dad, but I know how to play basketball. I'm really good at kickball. I'm really good at this. And he's like, oh yeah, okay. I'm like, I'm really good at sports, at being what, like, actually, no. This was like 7, 8 years old.
But it makes sense. You want to earn your dad's validation. You're not a boy. That's the best way to do it, by being a sporty girl.
Right.
And it's so continue. It still didn't really.
No. Obviously, because I'm not a boy. It doesn't matter. My parents, it's a very complicated, convoluted story. But long story short, my dad left us when I was about 11. So my sister was probably close to 13, 14. And he remarried somebody else and had a son with that person and got that son and just poof, literally poof. So,
and again, like I was saying before, in the selfish space, that's what he wanted was a son. So he did whatever he had to do to get that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say like
everybody else.
Right. He did whatever there's a lot of stuff that happened in his life,
course.
and nothing justifies leaving your children, regardless of what So it was his choice. He left, and I when my mom passed away in 2004, I did visit him, and because obviously like I was like, look, at the end of the day, I want a relationship with my brother. It's not his fault for any of this. I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't, whatever. At this point, like you're old enough, you can reach out to me too, but I don't need to always kind of,
Yeah.
And I had it out with my dad. He didn't yell at me or anything. I remember being in his backyard at night and just going in after him.
Which needed to happen.
Which needed to happen for me.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it needed to happen for him, but it was like, I was like, you left your children. I know that when I have children one day, I would never put something else before my children. Fine, you and mom didn't work out, that's one thing, but you left us, and I just kind of, I made him sob,
And he needed to, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that he sobbed.
Yeah, I mean, he's not not uncaring man, you know.
And I don't think I don't think that's a picture you're painting, but I think that, accountability is enormous. And to hear that he emoted and he was emotional and he was sad and there was regret, that's huge for you. That's part of the closure you needed.
Yes. But I assumed after that, and we kind of rekindled something in a relationship, that he would do a little more to reach out, and he hasn't. So that's on him now.
Yeah.
After, I laid it in on him and was like, but you're still my father. You're always going to be my father. My mother, when my dad left, my mom was so, like, my mother never spoke poorly about my father. She was so heartbroken. She was broken inside. I remember, she almost committed suicide.
I say she probably never healed from that.
She did. She became Buddhist, and she found a lot of, I don't know. I remember just sitting, when you're in hospice, the hospital allows or sends a therapist over once a week to speak to my mother, and that was the 1 hour that I had to, or 1 or 2 hours that I had to leave and not be in the house with my mom. And I just remember always coming home, and by the time hours up, I'd be coming back, and I'd walk in, and I just always see my the therapist holding my mother's hand, and like my mother's crying,
Puffy-eyed and right.
yeah, and I'm like, what's going on, and they're like, my mom's like, nothing. And my mom's big old smile, puffy eyes, like, nothing.
You're like, bullshit.
Yeah. And I'm like, why come you don't tell me? And she's like, these are things you don't need to know.
But she was doing the work.
My mom was, she was like,
doing the work.
Just to even think about that right now, like my mom, just knowing that she had stuff, but she's like, I still need to protect you even though I'm passing. And like, just... So I have a story, like I've told the story many times. This is my testimonial about, like, I came to God in 2008, long story. But the way I recognize Jesus in my life, because I have a very close relationship with Jesus. I don't have a very religious, it's not very religious. I just have a very close relationship with Jesus because I understand what Jesus means to me. So, and my mother is probably the closest thing of what an understanding of what Jesus is, which is unconditional love. The way I've learned this is that unconditional love, we're human. We can't give unconditional love because we're human. The closest thing, God's the only one that can give you unconditional love. But the closest,
and these little guys right here,
and these guys right here,
puppies.
and this,
Sorry,
yes,
go
there
ahead.
you go. It makes absolute sense. But my mother, when I was 16, I was clubbing, my dad had left and my mother was a single mom. She worked, at 6 a.m. every day. And she would wait up for me Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays till like 2, 3 in the morning. And that means she only slept for like 1-2 hours before she had to go to her post office government job to keep us, food on the table, roof over our heads. And I remember this one time I came home, I snuck in. It was like 3 a.m. I snuck in and the lights were off. I was like, yes, my mom's not asleep. My mom's like not waiting up for me. Wrong, close the door, lights flicker on. She's sitting on the couch like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, here we go again. Like we're just going to have another argument like we do every single night, And she just sat there and I remember her saying to me like, she's like, what, like, why are you doing this to me? You know, I have to be up in like an hour. Why are you doing this, Becky? Why? And I'm like, I'm not doing anything to you. I'm just trying to enjoy my life. I'm trying to live my life, obviously like a freaking teen angst, whatever.
All been there, right.
And so she's like, and then she said to me, and this is something that I actually wanted at the time, not realizing that. So she said to me, do you think I want to be like one of your friends' parents and give up on you? And I said, because, a lot of my friends at the time, or they were just, they partied and, I would be like, how do your parents allow you to stay out so late without getting on your case, They're like, oh, they gave up. They're just like, okay, as long as you come home, we're happy. And I was like, oh, I can't wait till my mom does that one day, because I would hate for, I just was so annoyed that she's constantly like, come home. What are you doing? Come home, And so when she said that, because I've never said that to my mother, when she said that, she's like, do you think I'm going to be one of your friends' parents and give up and give up on you? And I was like, I don't know what you're talking, because it resonated with me. I was like, oh God, did she read like a diary or something? Like what, And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, Mom. She's like, do you think I'm gonna be one of your friend's parents and give up on you? And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. She goes, well, guess what? I'm never giving up on you. And I just remember thinking to myself, no. But 3-4 years later, I'm like, oh my God. That was God working through my mom going, this is my child. I will die before I see you going down the wrong path. I will die first. I will do everything in my power to show you that you are loved so you don't ever go down that way. My mom's awesome.
I hear it. I can tell. I wish she was still here so I could meet her. She sounds like a true nurturer and somebody who lived a pretty tough life and like succeeded.
Yeah.
The fact that she went through from Buddhism, therapy, she did the work. She says, okay, I need to get me right for my kid.
Not just that, like my dad was very successful at one point in his career. My dad owned multiple clothing stores called Basic Elements in a bunch of malls. It's in the 80s. It's called Basic Elements.
Rings a bell. It was like Cosmopolitan or Cosmo Couture. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, nothing couture. It was like a poor man's version of Gap. Like there's nothing couture about it. So he had like three clothing stores in different malls. He had a real estate company called First Foundation Realty because he sold homes. And he was like a partner in like a restaurant or something like that. So he was a businessman, and long story short, he got conned by somebody, a guy that befriended him for 2 years, literally manipulated him for 2 years. We went on vacations with this man, went on vacations with him and his family, defrauded my dad and a bunch of investors that my dad was friends with because he knew that my dad would be the one to connect to so that my dad can get all the people that he knows.
Yeah, he was the introducer.
He was introduced. My dad was like the unofficial like mayor of Chinatown kind of a deal because he had business and he did good business with people, and so people invested a lot of their money into this business that they were going to open together. And my dad being spread so thin, when shipments were coming to the loading dock and things like that were supposed to happen with this company, this other man would say, go home to your family. It's fine. I'll go check the shipment out. I'll go do this and da-da-da-da-da. My dad trusted him, was like, okay, I'm exhausted. Yeah, I'll go to my family, because I have all these other businesses. And when all the investments came in, like everybody's like, my dad's talking to each person, like, invest this, the return's gonna be great, da-da-da-da. People finally obviously sent all their money into this, into the bank account. The guy took all the money and left.
Ran.
Yeah.
And got away with it.
Yeah, this is a story in itself. This is a crazy
hold on. No, we're almost out of time.
Okay, yeah, but I will tell you.
You're going to tell me this later because I still want to hear more about Giovanni Tovar. But see, and I knew this is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk with you is because I knew that there's so much to cover. Yeah. So I'm going to fast forward the conversation.
Yep.
And I want you to kind of go back into the space you were talking about your relationship with Jesus and some of the things. Was when we wrap up the conversations, I want people to have a message of hope. So what are the things that keep you happy and content and living in such, you seem like you're a present person. You seem happy. You seem like you have your shit together. Tell me about all the things that make you today. What do you do? What are you doing to make that happen?
I would say a constant stream of communication with Jesus for me, like just knowing that being a good person, what my mother has instilled in me, being there for others, living my life, not necessarily putting me first all the time in the space where it's me. It's what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And that feeds me. That feeds me so much that I didn't realize. I used to think I was like, God, doing things for people is really selfish because I would get so much joy out of it,
Oh,
yes.
Because I love to volunteer and I get that feeling. Did you learn this on your own or is this something that you were told or taught to be selfless? Because some of the stuff I've learned, like for me with therapy, when I would go, like I was hitting like serious roads of depression, my therapist told me the best thing to do when you're down is to go acts of service, help people. Right. So I was taught that. Did you just?
I don't think I was taught that. You know how they say there's 5 love languages? Mine's is when you say acts of service. That's when I took the test. Acts of service was like 95%.
So it's part of who you are.
Yeah, I think born and raised, like I've always like wanting to help, wanting to do, but always also being outgoing and an alpha male. Alpha male.
We're not going to edit that out.
being an alpha female. I just remember being young and my mother would be like, oh, can you do this? And I'd be like, yes. Like anything anybody asked me, like, I want to do it for you. I want to do it. Because if it brought joy to them, I want to like do it,
And
you know?
experience their joy.
And experience their joy. That's why like, so I can bring my boyfriend into this. Like my boyfriend is, so he's not a foodie. He's a white man from Oklahoma, like landlocked, doesn't eat sushi, doesn't like noodle soup. Like it's just like the
Meat
like
and potatoes.
some serious meat and potatoes, you know. But he's also like he did a little NFL and like the blah blah blah, and so he's very health conscious. He's never done drugs in his life.
Not even smoke a joint?
No, never.
Okay, just
not
kidding,
no,
just kidding. We
not.
don't smoke weed. Go ahead.
Nothing.
Wow.
And I've been an experimental child, so I've tried almost everything. Not everything, but almost everything, you know? And so, I forgot my train of thought. Sorry. What was I talking about?
We're talking about just you were kind of introducing him into how he being selfless and how,
Right. So eating amazing foods is such a joyful thing for me, and I want to experience it with him. But he's like,
hell no.
no, I'm just gonna get a Jimmy John sandwich, and I'm like, no.
You're like, but this black squid.
Do you not understand?
This
Like,
foie
oh no. And he doesn't like. I mean, he's like his palate. It actually hurts my heart. It hurts my soul a little bit. And that's something where you decide, like, is it gonna make or break us?
You're hilarious. Copy and paste with the person I've been seeing for about a year now. Same thing. I'm like, really? Okay, that's what you're eating? All right.
No, but you
Or
don't
not
understand.
eating?
Like growing up, eating family style is a normal thing, you know?
But it's cultural, it's the experience, it's where you bond, it's right.
So for him to be like, order whatever you want, I'm like, I know what I'm gonna order. What are you gonna order? He's like, don't worry about what I'm gonna order. I'm like, but what are you going to order? He's like, but I'm going to eat what I'm going to order. I'm like, will you just tell me what you're going to order so I can decide what I'm going to order? And then he orders something that I would never, ever want because it's boring and it's like chicken and broccoli. And I'm
Bland.
like,
right.
And I'm like, ugh. I'm just going to have to eat what's on my food. And that's so unsatisfying because I can't share with you.
Are you going to marry him?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're already trying to have, I'm older, so we're already working on trying to have babies.
And that's something, and again, because I've said twice, we're almost out of time, but that's something I want to talk about, matching letter game, and I want to talk about your view on bringing in a kid, and just talk about it just briefly, because we talked about it earlier, just why were you on the fence about wanting to get pregnant?
So, no, I wasn't on the fence about wanting to get pregnant. I've always wanted to, I knew that, because, the reason why I want to have a baby is because, like, my mother is so amazing that whatever she instilled in me, if I have any bit of what my mom has, I'm a success, and I want to share that to my child. Like, that's one of the main reasons is like the goodness of my mother passing through me to my child. It's like I want more good people on this earth. Now, since so we started trying in 2019. Had 3 miscarriages. It was really tough year.
Yeah. Sorry to hear that.
Oh, that's okay. I'm also older, so it's common to have miscarriages, but 3 back to back is just it's a lot, and the percentages, whatever. So so come 2020, like we went to a fertility doctor, did a bunch of stuff. But the pandemic happened, and on top of the pandemic, it's like we have, who we had as president at the time, and there was just a lot of turmoil, a lot of changes that happened, a lot of racism that was coming out. It's not that it wasn't there; it just was there, but it was dormant, and then just
nice choice of words.
Yeah, just seeing a lot of
reality.
The reality, and there's a lot of Asian hate crimes also, not just blacks, but like and then you went from the Muslim situation, and it just revolves. It's like it revolves.
Yeah, or transfers.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah, it's true.
And then so I was in a position where I was like, the state of the country, the where I felt like. In my heart, I was like, if Trump gets reelected, it terrifies me to the point where I don't have hope for humanity. I don't have hope for humanity. Why would I want to bring a child into a place? I mean, yes, the idea is like bring another good person, to my perception of a good person into this world and to do good, but with the struggles of, it's so difficult already. it probably will be more difficult if they were to be brought into this world. But then, Biden won and, just gave a little.
So just by Biden winning, did that change your perspective just enough or a lot?
Just enough.
Okay.
Just enough for me to go, okay.
Feels a little safer.
It's not even, it's safer. There's hope for There's hope for humanity.
I can tell the way you're saying, it's almost like you can't believe you're saying what you're saying.
Yeah. Like it's the idea is like, good is gonna prevail because that's what you always believe. Good will always prevail. Good will prevail. Good will prevail. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that people that believe whatever, like they believe in Trump or whatever is evil. Mm-hmm. I don't think they have I don't want to generalize it,
Mm-hmm.
It's just there's a skewed and hateful or selfish mentality in that. Whereas I'm not saying Biden doesn't have that. I'm just saying that the people that voted for Biden is voting for a community of people, not just themselves.
With an emphasis on peace and getting along.
Getting along. Everyone just get along. Like it's not about what you believe in. It's like, okay, how can we compromise here? Let's compromise.
Keep talking. I'm going to step over here and grab something.
Okay.
You're like, what do I say? Talk about this
Yeah. So I did stand-up comedy for a while.
Did you really?
No, I did. It was something on my bucket list, and I did one class, and I performed on stage, and it was amazing, and I never want to do it again.
Well, if it was amazing,
It was. You know what? Actually, to be honest, if I
You and I could-
actually spent a little time doing it, I think I'd be pretty good at it. Like, I think I'd be successful.
Part of the reason I work in the business that we're in, right, is because of that rush, that feeling of that feels.
Oh,
the
it
feels.
was it was. I'll let you watch it after this. I'll let you watch my 5 minutes, okay?
Girl, you're funny without trying to be. So,
but the thing is, I was afraid. No. The thing about comedy is I have to sit and write, and I'm not a writer. I should be, but I'm not.
Before we say goodbye, what are you? You're an actress. Actor.
I'm an actor. I'm a casting director. I own my own casting office. Casting. That was awesome. That's like a blessing from God. Also,
That's hard work. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just started a company. Kidlio is my brand.
KIDLYO.
Yep, Kidlio. It's basically, this is my first product that I'm selling on Amazon, which is called Matching Letter Game, and it's a game that it helps kids with letter recognition, spelling. It's basically letter cubes with flashcards, and you can hide the letters, and they can find the letters through the letter cube, and kind of help them with that.
What? Where? Why? I mean, you already have enough on your plate. You got 3 dogs. You got a man. You've got your casting business. You've got your acting career. Where the hell did this come from?
So in Los Angeles, you need several streams of revenue. You don't stop because you never know. One thing ends and another can continue, can keep you going.
Yeah.
So no, my friend introduced me to a company that teaches you how to basically self-label a brand and sell it online and do the marketing and all that stuff. And I was like, in 2017, I bought into it and was like, this is a great idea. It makes absolute sense. At that time, e-commerce was probably only 30% of what the nation was only doing 30% of it, and it was like $2.75 billion, right, or trillion. I forgot what it is. And they're like, imagine if 70%, 80% of people were doing e-commerce, buying everything online. I mean, and they are now, especially COVID. Now everything's done online, know. And with Amazon, the way it functions, there's FBA, which is fulfillment by Amazon. You don't need to have a brick and mortar to own a company anymore. They send it, and you just pay Amazon a little percentage to hold your stuff for you, and you just,
So this was kind of fated. This wasn't something that you had in your back pocket, like, ooh, I always want to design a game for kids.
No.
Gotcha.
It was something that was brought to my attention, like, this is another stream of revenue that you can do for a business, and I was like, the business. So one quick thing. When I was young, my mother, who's Buddhist, and I'm not really, obviously, like being Christian, I don't really subscribe to, like, fortune telling and things like that. But when I was young, my mother, did have me go to a Buddhist kind of fortune teller, read my palms, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I want to be an actor when I'm older. And they're like, oh, you'll be fine. You'll be able to do it. You just won't be big. And I was like, that's
Not what I want to hear.
Not what I want to hear, you know?
Try again.
Yeah. So, but they said, I mean, and this was 2 separate fortune tellers that told me this that never met. And this was years apart. Both said this to me. I can do it. It just won't be big. However, both also said to me, if you got into business, you'll be at the top.
So here you are.
And no, well,
I shouldn't say you're at the top, but here you are in business. Your fault. You're doing it.
Right.
And not necessarily by those 2 conversations. This is part of your makeup. I mean, your dad was that way. Is that he's still with us?
Yes.
Yeah, your dad is that way.
Yes.
This is part of you got 3 things. See, he had 3 things.
I also, because of my father, know that I don't want to spread myself too thin.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. What I like about this is that there's still an emphasis of selflessness in this. You're educating. You're spreading positive words. Okay, we could do this all day. I hate to wrap this up. I really do. And I'm so grateful for you. I want to ask you one more question before we say goodbye. And it's a loaded question. So basically, is there anything that you would like to include that you want people to hear? It could be anything. Is there a small message, something that you think people need to hear?
I mean, I think it's a universal message is just love your neighbor, love onto others. Like there's just so much hurt and pain in this world. I feel like if you could just be nice, smile, think of others, you know?
I love it. Think of others.
Yeah. Think of others.
I mean, that has done so much for me in the past 3 years as I've kind of tried to find myself let's make it less about me and more about other people.
Right.
And that truly is the key.
Well,
I think that's also part of Buddhism.
Somebody actually told me back in the day, you focus so much on others, you've forgotten yourself.
And that can happen.
There's
a balance.
Yes. But I realize now, I was always like, oh, okay, so I'm focused on other people, so I should really focus on myself. And I've realized when I focus on myself, it brought me no joy. No joy. So I was like,
but you're able to keep these spinning plates and still create joy. So what are you doing to this is about you, acting is about you, your business is about you. What are you doing? So what is the other side of that for you? Can you answer that?
What do you mean?
I mean, as far as when we're talking about doing selfless things for other people, because that's what gives us joy. So these 3 things you have now are kind of reduced to you and your business. That's about you. So what are the things that you do? You know what I mean?
Oh. You know what? It's
just it's an everyday way of life, right?
Right. It's an everyday way of life.
Yeah.
Like for example, my girlfriend just came back from Canada. I, got her apartment, set it up, talked to my landlord, was like, she needs these windows fixed. And she was like, oh, I need these windows fixed. I'm like, yes, you need those windows fixed and better. And then stay at my place, quarantine at my house. And just everyday things that I'm capable of doing.
Well, it's also, I get it. It's always keeping your eyes open for opportunity to be able to help others. That's what you do.
Oh, it was especially in my casting. Like my casting, I have opportunity to communicate a lot with other agents all the time. And whenever I meet somebody and they're like, "Oh, it's just difficult," I'm like, "Let me get your information. I'll try to get a set up meeting for you with because it's like it brings me joy.
Yeah.
Like people have asked me time and time again, like, "Hey, you should do a workshop. You should do a class. You should teach a class in commercial casting and blah 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 and blah, and this and that." And I just I feel like I don't want to charge people. I don't want to charge money because it's something that I'm like, I feel like I was so blessed in this. I want to just
pay
give
it forward.
This information.
Yes.
I just want to give it.
Yeah. And that to me, that makes sense. I get that. That's true.
I mean, I understand there's a business aspect to it,
But why monetize that when you're just helping people be better people?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like things that I've always I wish someone told me this.
Yeah, I get it. My buddy David, a good friend of mine, he kind of possesses the same mentality in the sense that he's constantly paying it forward, not even really unwillingly doing it. It's just happening.
Yeah.
People are hitting him up. He's like, "Yeah, I got you. Yeah, no problem. Make a call." You know what I mean? It's
always.
It's a second nature for him. We're gonna leave you on that. Make that your second nature. Find ways to help other people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I got goosebumps. For me, that's a good podcast. If I can get goosebumps, I need some lotion. All right, y'all. So that will be edited out. Instagram, Facebook. Where do you want us to find you? On your website for your businesses?
Yeah, there's I want you Kidlyo.com, KIDLYO.com. There is OrangeStreetCasting.com. And
Becky Wu.
Hit me up on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram. It's Beckavelli, BECKIVELLI. I am not. I'm not a grammar. I'm sorry. I'm terrible. So.
I think you meant to say I'm not grammatic.
No,
I'm not a
gram,
grandma.
like the gram.
Oh, gotcha. I'm not a grandma.
I'm not a. What is that social media? Oh,
An influencer. Well, neither.
I'm not an influencer.
Neither am I, because I barely knew what you were talking about. All right, so you know where to find her. Friends with Kids, hop on Amazon. Let's support Becky. Matching Letter Game, Kidlyo, Kidlyo. Again, follow Do Your Part on Facebook as well as Instagram, all social media platforms. Share us, like it. We love you. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon.